Brian Tracy on Courage asterisk a story of transformation and triumph asterisk there comes a moment in every person's life when they stand at a crossroads, facing a decision that will define not just their immediate future, but the very essence of who they become. For Marcus Rodriguez, that moment arrived on a rain-soaked Tuesday evening in downtown Chicago as he stared at the termination letter in his trembling hands. At 32, Marcus had spent 8 years climbing the corporate ladder at a prestigious marketing firm. He had done everything right, followed the rules, played it safe, never rocked the boat. Yet here he was, another casualty of corporate restructuring, another statistic in the endless cycle of economic uncertainty. But this story isn't about failure. It's about courage. It's about the transformative power that lies dormant within each of us, waiting for the right moment to emerge. It's about the principles that Brian Tracy, one of the world's foremost experts on personal development, has taught millions of people around the globe. As Marcus sat in his empty office, boxing up 8 years of his professional life, he remembered something his grandmother had once told him: Mijo, courage isn't the absence of fear. It's feeling the fear and choosing to act anyway. At the time, he had dismissed it as another one of her countless pearls of wisdom. Now, those words echoed in his mind with newfound relevance. The rain continued to beat against the windows as Marcus made his way home that night. His wife, Sarah, was waiting for him with their two young children, Emma and David. The mortgage payment was due in 2 weeks. The car needed repairs. Emma's piano lessons, David's soccer fees, all the financial obligations that come with building a life seemed to press down on him like a weight he could no longer carry. But sometimes rock bottom becomes the solid foundation on which we rebuild our lives. That night, unable to sleep, Marcus found himself in his study, scrolling through videos on personal development. It was then that he discovered Brian Tracy's teachings on courage, lessons that would fundamentally alter the trajectory of his life. Tracy's voice resonated through the darkness of that small room. Courage is not a feeling. Courage is an action. It's the willingness to face uncertainty, to embrace discomfort, to step into the unknown despite your fears. Marcus learned that courage comes in many forms. There's physical courage, the kind we see in heroes who rush into burning buildings. There's moral courage, standing up for what's right even when it's unpopular. And then there's the kind of courage that would transform Marcus's life, the courage to pursue your dreams, to bet on yourself, to take calculated risks in pursuit of something greater. As Tracy explained in his teachings, successful people aren't fearless. They feel the same fears as everyone else. The difference is that they've learned to act in spite of their fears. They've developed what Tracy calls courage competence, the ability to face uncertainty with confidence and determination. Marcus began to understand that his job loss wasn't the end of his story, it was the beginning of a new chapter. For years, he had harbored a dream of starting his own digital marketing consultancy. He had the skills, the experience, and the vision. What he had lacked was courage, the courage to leave the safety of a steady paycheck and venture into the uncertain world of entrepreneurship. But courage, as Tracy teaches, is like a muscle. The more you exercise it, the stronger it becomes. Marcus started small. He reached out to his former clients, offering freelance services. It was terrifying making those first calls, essentially admitting that he was no longer with the prestigious firm that had given him credibility. But with each conversation, his confidence grew. He discovered that many clients valued his personal attention more than the company's brand name. Within 3 months, Marcus had enough freelance work to cover his basic expenses. But this was just the beginning. Tracy's teachings had shown him that courage isn't just about taking one big leap. It's about consistently taking small, calculated risks that compound over time. Marcus began to study his craft more intensely. He invested in online courses, attended virtual conferences, and networked with other entrepreneurs. Each investment felt risky, money was tight, and time was precious, but he remembered Tracy's principle: the biggest risk is not taking any risk at all. As his skills improved and his network expanded, larger opportunities began to present themselves. A local restaurant chain needed help with their digital presence. A tech startup required a complete rebranding. Each project was bigger than anything Marcus had handled independently, and each one scared him. But he had learned to interpret fear differently. Tracy teaches that fear often signals opportunity. When we're afraid of something, it's often because it matters to us, because it has the potential to create significant change in our lives. Instead of running from fear, successful people learn to move toward it. Marcus took on the restaurant chain project. It was a 6-month commitment that would either establish his reputation or potentially destroy it. The stakes were higher than he had ever experienced. There were sleepless nights, moments of self-doubt, and times when he questioned whether he had made the right decision. But courage isn't about the absence of doubt. It's about acting decisively despite uncertainty. The restaurant campaign exceeded everyone's expectations. Sales increased by 40% during the campaign period, and the client was so impressed that they referred Marcus to 3 other businesses. Word began to spread about the former corporate executive who had reinvented himself as an innovative digital marketer. As his reputation grew, so did the size and complexity of his projects. Marcus found himself working with million-dollar companies, managing teams of contractors, and making strategic decisions that affected dozens of employees and their families. The responsibility was overwhelming, but he had developed what Tracy calls expanded comfort zones. Tracy teaches that successful people continuously expand their comfort zones by deliberately placing themselves in challenging situations. They understand that growth and comfort cannot coexist. Each time Marcus took on a larger project, handled a more complex client relationship, or made a bigger financial commitment, he was expanding his comfort zone and building his courage competence. 2 years after losing his corporate job, Marcus's consultancy had grown into a full-service digital marketing agency with 12 employees and annual revenues exceeding $2 million. But the financial success, while satisfying, wasn't the most significant transformation. The real change was in Marcus himself. He had evolved from someone who played it safe to someone who actively sought opportunities to grow. He had developed what Tracy identifies as one of the key characteristics of highly successful people: the willingness to face uncertainty with confidence. This transformation didn't go unnoticed by his family. Sarah watched her husband evolve from someone who came home drained and frustrated every day to someone who was energized by challenges and excited about the future. Emma and David saw their father not as someone who went to work for someone else, but as someone who created value, who built something meaningful, who made a difference in the world. But perhaps the most profound change was in how Marcus viewed setbacks and obstacles. In his corporate days, any criticism or failure felt like a personal attack on his competence. Now, guided by Tracy's teachings, he understood that obstacles are not roadblocks but stepping stones. Every challenge was an opportunity to develop greater resilience, to learn new skills, to become stronger and more capable. When a major client unexpectedly terminated their contract, costing Marcus's agency nearly 30% of its revenue, he didn't panic. Instead, he saw it as an opportunity to diversify his client base and reduce his dependence on any single source of income. Within 6 months, he had not only replaced the lost revenue but exceeded it by developing relationships with 5 smaller clients. Tracy teaches that this perspective shift is crucial for long-term success. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" successful people ask, "What can I learn from this? And how can I use this experience to become better?" As Marcus's agency continued to grow, he began to face new challenges that required even greater levels of courage. He was invited to speak at industry conferences, to share his transformation story with other entrepreneurs. Public speaking had always terrified him, but he recognized this as another opportunity to expand his comfort zone. His first speaking engagement was at a local business association meeting. There were only 30 people in the audience, but Marcus's heart pounded as if he were addressing thousands. His voice shook as he began to speak, But as he shared his story of transformation, of going from corporate employee to successful entrepreneur, he could see the impact his words were having on the audience. After the presentation, a young woman approached him with tears in her eyes. She had been laid off from her marketing job 3 months earlier and had been paralyzed by fear and uncertainty. Marcus's story had given her the courage to start her own consulting practice. This interaction crystallized something important for Marcus. He realized that his journey wasn't just about his own success, it was about demonstrating what's possible when someone develops the courage to pursue their dreams. Tracy teaches that true success includes the responsibility to lift others up, to share the knowledge and inspiration that can help others transform their own lives. Marcus began to dedicate more time to mentoring other aspiring entrepreneurs. He started a monthly meetup group for people considering leaving corporate careers to start their own businesses. He shared not just the successes but also the failures, the fears, and the moments of doubt that are inevitable parts of any entrepreneurial journey. Through these interactions, Marcus discovered another dimension of courage that Tracy emphasizes: the courage to be vulnerable, to admit mistakes, to share failures as well as successes. He learned that authenticity and transparency actually strengthen relationships and build trust rather than undermining credibility. One of the entrepreneurs Marcus mentored was Jennifer, a software engineer who had been dreaming of starting her own app development company for 5 years but had never taken the leap. Through their conversations, Marcus helped Jennifer understand that she didn't need to have all the answers before she started. As Tracy teaches, you don't have to be great to get started, but you have to get started to be great. Jennifer's success: she launched her first app 6 months after their initial conversation, reminded Marcus of how far he had come. Just 4 years earlier, he had been the one paralyzed by fear and uncertainty. Now he was helping others overcome those same obstacles. But the journey of developing courage is never complete. Even as Marcus's business continued to thrive, new challenges emerged that required him to dig deeper and find new reserves of bravery. When the global pandemic hit, Marcus's agency lost 60% of its clients within 6 weeks as businesses cut marketing budgets to survive. Many entrepreneurs in similar situations panicked, laid off employees, or even closed their businesses entirely. But Marcus had learned to view crises as opportunities for reinvention. Instead of retrenching, he saw the pandemic as a chance to pivot and serve clients in new ways. He quickly retrained his team to help businesses transition to online operations, to develop e-commerce capabilities, and to communicate effectively with customers during uncertain times. This pivot required enormous courage. Marcus had to invest significant resources in new training and technology while his revenue was plummeting. He had to have difficult conversations with employees about temporary pay cuts while assuring them that the company would not only survive but emerge stronger. The strategy worked. Within 8 months, Marcus's agency was not only back to pre-pandemic revenue levels but had exceeded them by 30%. More importantly, the company had developed new capabilities and served clients in ways that created deeper, more valuable relationships. Tracy teaches that some of our greatest opportunities are disguised as insurmountable problems. The pandemic forced Marcus to innovate, to develop new skills, and to discover strengths he didn't know he possessed. As Marcus reflected on his journey from terminated employee to successful entrepreneur and mentor, he realized that courage had been the common thread running through every significant positive change in his life. Not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act despite fear. Not the elimination of uncertainty, but the development of comfort with ambiguity. He thought about Brian Tracy's core teaching: that we all have far more potential than we realize, but most people never tap into that potential because they allow fear to keep them in their comfort zones. Marcus had broken free from that limitation, and in doing so, had discovered capabilities he never knew he possessed. Today, Marcus's story serves as inspiration for thousands of people who attend his speaking engagements or participate in his mentorship programs. But he never positions himself as someone who has arrived or conquered fear permanently. Instead, he shares the ongoing process of developing courage, of continuously expanding comfort zones, of viewing challenges as opportunities for growth. He tells people that courage isn't a destination, it's a practice. Every day brings new opportunities to choose courage over comfort, growth over safety, possibility over certainty. The difference between people who create extraordinary lives and those who settle for ordinary ones isn't talent, luck, or circumstances, it's the daily choice to act with courage. Marcus often closes his presentations by sharing Brian Tracy's fundamental truth: the future belongs to those who have the courage to create it. He reminds his audiences that they already possess everything they need to transform their lives. They have skills, experiences, dreams, and most importantly, the capacity for courage. The question isn't whether they're capable of achieving their goals. The question is whether they're willing to develop the courage necessary to pursue them. As Marcus looks toward the future, he continues to set goals that scare him, to pursue opportunities that challenge him, and to expand his comfort zone in service of his dreams. His agency is preparing to expand internationally, a venture that brings familiar feelings of uncertainty and excitement. But now he understands that these feelings aren't obstacles to overcome, they're signals that he's moving in the right direction. They indicate that he's continuing to grow, continuing to become more than he was yesterday. The rain that fell on that Tuesday evening 4 years ago seemed like the end of Marcus's world. In reality, it was the beginning of his transformation. It was the moment when circumstances forced him to discover the courage that had always existed within him, waiting for the right moment to emerge. Brian Tracy's teachings didn't give Marcus courage, they helped him recognize and develop the courage he already possessed. They provided the framework, the strategies, and the inspiration necessary to transform potential into reality. And that's the ultimate message of Marcus's story: courage isn't a rare quality possessed by a special few. It's a fundamental human capacity that exists within all of us. The choice to develop and exercise that courage, that's what separates those who create extraordinary lives from those who accept ordinary ones. The future is waiting. It belongs to those with the courage to claim it. Your future is waiting. Do you have the courage to create it? Note. This story draws inspiration from Brian Tracy's teachings on courage and personal development while creating a fictional narrative to illustrate these principles. The characters and specific situations are imaginary, but the underlying concepts reflect Tracy's well-documented philosophies on success, courage, and personal transformation.